and I am a sociologist and former researcher looking to help out the people around me and talk to people I know about what they do and how we can help figure out a path for other people to do it in their own life. Whether we talk about professions, projects, traveling, everything's game in this channel. So tonight I'm sitting with my old friend, Adrian Ornelas. Hi, Adrian. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. I want to thank you for being here with us on the channel tonight. And I'm very happy that you decided to chat with me because we go like way back. I used to be like, you were my manager for a while, and I was your like not so great employee. And I remember you would always make me stay my full shift, and I'd be like, I don't want to go home, you know, but so we're looking at how your work ethic has translated to the real estate world, and we both grew up and became our own professionals. So let's talk about where you've gone since then. So you're a real estate broker now, right? Can you just tell us a little about what you're doing, a little about you? Give us a little taste for who Adrian is.
Well, I'll start with the broker difference, the difference between a realtor and a broker or real estate agent. So, I mean, basically, a realtor is just you have it's an association and you become part of that. A real estate broker is the license that you actually have to get from the state. And you have to, if you want to sell homes, you have to be working under a broker. So for example, when I started being an agent, I had to find a broker to go and have him sponsor or her sponsor me to be able to work under them. So basically what happens is any real estate transaction, whoever that agent is working under, the broker is ultimately responsible. So if me as an agent, I did something incorrectly, the broker had to answer for whatever I did as an agent. And so the broker pretty much has the full responsibility of whatever happens with the transaction. How I got started. So I've had my license for a very, very long time, even back then when we used to work together. So I got my license in 2006. So in 2006, I got my license. I was 21. So I can't tell you that I was very, responsible or that I was really into it. The reason that I got into it was because my dad asked me if I would get my license because he was in the mortgage business. And so he figured it'd be a good way to have some extra income for the family, but I can't tell you that I took it too seriously, shamefully. But I got the license, and it took me a while because I wasn't very interested in it. And so I got the license July of 2006. And that's also when I started working at that place where we both worked at. So it so happened to be at the same time. And so I had the license for those 2 years. So 2007, I remember doing a couple transactions and I learned a little bit. 2008, I think looking back, I really don't have much recollection of actually anything happening. And that's when the prices went down. So I didn't really take part in any of that. I always tell people really, I've been selling homes since 2009. And that's when I started back. And I started around March. And I started with a small brokerage. So imagine somebody like me, probably even actually more agents than me and a lot more experience than I've had. That broker had been selling homes probably since late 70s, to give you an idea. So I got to learn a lot from him. I worked at that brokerage from 2009 all the way to 2014. So I got to learn a lot. The first few years when you're starting, thankfully I had that job that we both shared, so that, was able to pay the bills and do all that stuff. And then myself, I'm a little more social now, but back then I was very quiet and mute. And so, really get to earn a lot of clients that way. So I started out slowly. So I had all the experience because a lot of transactions, it takes a few of them to actually get a hang of things. And I was coached very well as far as paperwork and all that stuff goes. So that part, I had it down since all the way back then. So fast forward to 2012, I decided to leave that job and try to do real estate full time. And that was both like the best year and also the slowest year for me as a real estate agent, because I had so much freedom because I didn't have that. And then I had to actually have my own schedule, which was, I can't say I was very strict with myself. So, one thing about being in this industry or just job is that you have to have a very good work ethic to be able to get things done. Because if you're not doing it, then nobody else is going to do it for you, and you're not, getting paid. You don't earn anything until you finish the transaction and get somebody his home sold, or you help somebody buy their house. So that's the way that works. If you're not working, you're not really doing much. So that was that year right there. So I like to say that I did pretty good for so the first year, as kind of clock started going down. So I quit in May, and May, June, July were super tough. Like I didn't actually start doing anything until probably after September. The market always has like ups and downs. I mean, mostly what happens is that there's like big spikes, and then it just slows down, and then there's like big spikes. And so when those big spikes happen, like there's a lot more competition, and there's a lot more competition. It just makes our job a little bit more difficult, because if you have a lot of buyers, there's always not that many listings to put them in homes, which is kind of the market right now. So that makes a transaction that potentially could take 2-3 months go into like 5 months or something like that, because you're trying to find them at home and you're trying to get things on. So back in those days, I mean, homes went from being an average of say 70,000, and from almost about May to about I'll say September, October, they jumped probably a good 50,000 in pricing. Like that's how crazy the market got in those few months.
Oh wow!
So it's very competitive. It makes it very difficult. So I didn't start doing any real business until the next year. So I kind of kicked into gear really until like December that year. So I had a really good, I like to call it, I had some time off because I didn't do a lot. So income in January, I was ready to go back in and actually, try to stay busy and figure out a way to get clients, because the hardest part is actually getting clients. And so,
so you don't there, seem like you. I was just thinking. I think that what you've said so far is pretty interesting, because from people I know and people we knew when we were working together, a lot of people get into real estate thinking they're going to get rich quick, right? Or do something, or at least that's the impression I have. But what we're learning here is there's a lot of hard work behind it, and one of the things is getting clients. So how did you manage to do that? How did you find clients, and how did you build trust with the community?
And so that's one of the toughest part to really kind of get started on, because 23, 24, that trust factor, like they look at you and you're very young. So then, so most of my clients were people that I knew, or friends of friends, kind of, or maybe my brother and my sister, they send me a few clients. And then from there, it starts branching out. So it's kind of like a tree. So as long as you're doing a great job for everybody, it starts off, just one, and then from there it goes on. But you have to be very patient if that's kind of what you're going to base your clientele off. There's some agents that there's ways of marketing that you don't really need to do that, but it comes with, your personality, depending how you treat that. So one of the ways that a lot of people that are starting off being agents start off is doing open houses and stuff like that, where they sit at the home, even though it's not their listing. They don't really have anything to do with it, except they had permission to go and sit there, because it benefits the seller and it benefits the listing agent just trying to move it a lot quicker. So, but I hated doing that. I could not do it, because till this day, I've never turned over a client that comes in, or somebody that comes in at an open house and just meet them, because I can't myself. I just can't make that connection like that fast. It's super rare. And then you could also pay for marketing. And when you pay for marketing, well, it costs some money. And then you have to also make those relationships turn sweet really fast and being able to help people that way. So that year of 2012 and 2013, I had to work those, not the open houses, because there just wasn't that much. Like the homes would move too quick to even have an open house. So that wasn't even a thing. But I did take on incoming calls that my broker would have, and I would take all those calls. I would take rental properties that people were inquiring, and they're like, oh, if you don't, that property is no longer available, but I can help you with this one, et cetera, et cetera. So any of those calls that came into the office, I picked them up. And so like I had to work on some of those people, and over time, I got to keep some of those people as clients, and they stay with me. But ultimately, it's just all referrals. I would say probably about 90 to 95% of my clients are just people that I've done business with that they refer me to friends, family, and stuff like that. And then just other kind of random calls, and it just clicks, and then they stayed with me.
It's the life of the independent hustler, right? You got to know people and then get them to tell people who you are, right?
Oh yeah. So I mean, some people are very successful when right as soon as they jump in, because it's all, we call it our sphere of influence. So if you have an awesome sphere that you're already working in between, like say, I don't know, say you're the son of a doctor, that guy's gonna do fairly well because of the people that they know and the price ranges they're in. And then from there, of course, you have to have work ethic to build it, but they already have a pretty good setup to start off on, because then they get to build off of that.
Yeah. And I bet, you might know more people who have money to buy a home, instead of like your friends who are at home living with their parents.
That part is, yeah, something like that, right? I mean, and honestly, like back in those days, so the way we get paid is based on a percentage of how much the home is. And so back in the days when, a $70,000 house was, what I would get paid on, it wasn't a lot of money for, 4 months or 5 months of work. If you think about it that way. So you have to really have quite a few clients to build off of that. As prices increase, then that number changes a lot. And so then what I think, for myself, the market's been busy the last few years, but for myself, I'm thankful that I helped a lot of those people back when the homes were not very expensive. And, I didn't make, a lot of money, but those people came back to me in today's time frame, and that's a different world. And so I help them sell the one that they bought back then, and then most times help them get into the new one. And so then, it creates a different economy for each individual.
So having repeat clients is pretty helpful, because you get your starter home, the little one, and then it earns more, becomes more valuable. You sell it, you look for another home, right?
Yeah. That's why. If you're in this, you have to look at it very, very much in the long-term range, because as things change, whether it's one way or another, the business is going to grow based on how long you last. They say that the average time that an agent stays in the industry is only 2 years, because after 2 years they can't make it.
Wow.
They're going into it full time, I suppose. But so just to take but there's always those awesome stories of agents that first year they started it's really much sales, and not even in the form of trying to sell them a home that they shouldn't be buying type of thing, but more in the people that you get to make relationships with and communicate with. That's really what it's about.
So do you have the coolest house you've ever sold, or the coolest client you've ever worked for? Can you tell us a little behind the scenes action?
Well, I don't yet. I don't have anybody that's extremely wealthy or anything like that. My circle's still pretty small into everybody else that I've helped, and it's gone from helping somebody sell like a $150,000 house So that same client wanted to buy a almost $1 million house. I mean, that's, to me, that was like, I was surprised because I was like, okay, that's a big change from wanting to go to that to like all of a sudden you're looking at that property. And I mean, they made it happen. So I mean, that's been the coolest one, just because of how, I mean, it was a total polar opposite of whatever properties we were dealing with the rest of their portfolio.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much the closest thing to a mansion that I've done. I mean, everything else before that. So that one was about 932,000, which in my world, that's a lot. If you're in California, that's base.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. The Bay Area, go home.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a different cost of living, and those agents, I mean, I'm sure they do well, but their expenses just live there is expensive. So,
yeah.
But before that, the most expensive one I had done was about 430,000. So it's a big jump from that to that. So, and it's always changing. So I mean, now in the ranges that's kind of normal. So it's great.
So you've had to develop your skills and your sphere of influence and, get word of mouth marketing. But I was kind of creeping on you on Instagram for a while. And that's why I was like, I want to talk to Adrian on the show, because I noticed that you do really cool things that maybe I haven't seen other people do with, like, for Instagram, for example. But also, I'm not really in the market to buy a home right now, so I don't really know what people are doing. But what made you decide to use Instagram for marketing? How do you do your marketing for that? And what's kind of the unique take you do with it that makes you stand out? Or, why even bother putting the effort into that,
Yeah. So back in, let's see, 2017, 2016. So around 2015, I kind of noticed that, the potential of it. And of course, from feedback from, say like Gary Vee and any of that.
Oh, I was just going to say, do you listen to Gary Vee? Yeah. That's why I'm here.
So, I mean, that's kind of a little bit of what it started. Like it kind of sparked, right? So then it sparked the idea of because I would just listen to the podcast and a couple of Facebook videos. And so it grabbed my attention of how he was talking about it, because previous to that, I was just posting photos and it was awesome, because then I got to see like just sold or, like certain facts and stuff, but just things like that. Photos of the houses. If I was doing an open house, I'll do a video of, me out in the open house, like not actually me showing myself, because I was terrified of that. I didn't want to do that. And so as, kind of times kept kind of going, that was 2016. There was a whole bunch of stuff I was doing. But in between it, it was awesome, because I really got to teach myself a lot with that, just trying things out. But my idea that really started with it, besides, me seeing that, is because I don't really get to hang out much with people. And again, it's a relationship thing. It's being social and all that stuff. And I didn't really have a chance, like clients would, tell me, like, oh, do you want to go to a barbecue, or we're having this or that type of thing. And I didn't really have a lot of time to do all of that, because I was also busy with another business and just kind of life. And so I thought, it was like, what's a good way to stay in contact with all these people that I know, and, like not having to show up at their, birthday party of whatever it is that they do, because I'm just not that great at hanging out anyways. So I thought, I'm just gonna, be on there as much as possible, because everybody's on there. So as long as I could always keep me top of mind when it comes to real estate, and they know that that's what I do, because people would call me and ask me, like, hey, are you still doing real estate? I mean, to give you an idea of how, people kind of go in and out of it. And people always called me that for that. So then, now it's kind of like, there's no doubt that that's what I do, right? And that's what I wanted to do. I want to do it anytime that anybody that I know, like, I never wanted anybody to just, be like, oh, I didn't think about you when I was gonna, do my sell or whatever.
Oh, I see.
So I wanted to have something that was a little bit more, easy for me to, like be out there, but then still not having to, show up at every single thing that they had, because I just didn't have that much time. And
Yeah.
so then that's when I started trying to do a little bit of at first I would just again do the properties and then just kind of go around the properties. And then at
Mhm.
the beginning of 2018, so I started my brokerage, like me actually going off solo, December of 2017. So
Oh, okay.
2017 was awesome, and I had my broker license since actually 2016, but I just never got my stuff together and actually go do it. So
Mhm.
then eventually I just did it, and I was just like, I'm just gonna get out of here, because I just wanted to go on my own, because I've always wanted to do this. um,
Mhm.
so that year of 2018, I was trying to get an assistant to help me out with that, the video part of it, and then some of the transactions, and then just kind of be able to help me flow out the work a little bit better.
Mhm.
And just we're kind of random at this one new home, and one of my friends, my friend Eric, he's like, why don't you just do a video with you presenting the home? And I was like, I don't want to do that because I feel silly. I don't,
I
I
actually
can't
really
see
like those
myself being
videos.
on a camera. Yeah, I mean, but that first one is very unique, and I look back at it and I love it because it just I remember having my assistant that I had. Her name is Natasha, and she was like, just she was very like open about it, and like I felt I was like, anybody behind the camera was like kind of judgy, but she kind of just helped me flow it out. And I was just like, okay, I was like, I did it. And then from there on, then I just started doing the videos where I would be at the new home site. And what I wanted to do with that is I never had a lot of clients that were interested in brand new homes, because you could essentially go to the builder and just start that process yourself, or you
Mhm.
could have an agent with you. And then what happens is, I mean, the builder has their systems in place, but when you have the agent with you, you kind of just feel like you have somebody in your corner in case of whatever it is, or to explain things further. And
Yeah.
there's never been a new home transaction, like newly built, where they don't call me. Like, they're supposed to be easy, but they're not, because you're
Oh,
always
geez.
having to answer questions that the builder really can't answer a lot of the times. Um,
Uh-huh.
but anyway, I started. That's when I went full in with the brand new home videos, and after that, I had a different assistant with me, and we would basically go into the brand new homes, ask the builder for permission, and then take quick tours of the property, and then me present it at the beginning, just say this is where I'm at, this is the price, come and take a look with us. And then so again, just another way of keeping in communication with the people, because most of the people that I have on Instagram are people that I've known, and then usually friends of friends, which is my intention from the get-go of doing it, and just to make sure that anybody never forgets that I'm a real estate agent, broker, whatever that you want me to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I remember I was going to buy some property in Las Vegas, where your operations are, because that's where we grew up. And the whole thing didn't work
Yeah.
out on account of my silly butt moving to a different state. So sorry about that, Adrian. But you're top of mind for
It's totally
me. And
fine.
yeah, we'll get there soon, though. We'll get there soon. Um, but when I see the Instagram,
Appreciate it.
I'm reminded of you constantly, and I also see how your content is developing in new ways. But I think the walkthrough videos are so cool, because I feel when I look at listings for houses or apartments, the way they take the photos are really misleading, and the space looks huge. Like, it's great photography, it's amazing. But then when you do someone on a
Yeah.
walkthrough, you're like, oh my gosh, the lighting is terrible, or oh my gosh, this place is actually really nice and beautiful. And you look at it from the perspective of someone who would be walking through the home wanting to buy it. Like, I want to look up in the corners. Y'all got sconces? Do you have some big chandeliers? Stuff like that. But one thing I
Yeah.
saw that you did that was really cool was, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you using drones while you do your videos? And if so, how did that happen? How did that
Yes.
get started?
So I mean, now everybody has them, but back back in 2018, it wasn't very common to like see it. You would see it on like a lot of luxury properties because hiring somebody to do that probably back then was more expensive. But
Mhm.
I when I was growing up as a kid, like me having a remote control car was like the
Yeah.
most awesome thing I wanted to have, and I never really did. Like I always had to kind of have to wire, and it wouldn't go too far. So I got the idea because I watched this guy that does travel videos on Vox, and he had this one video where he was sitting at the ledge of or outside of a window of this place in like Norway or something,
Mhm.
and he's on his window, and then the previous videos that I watched, he was just pretty much taking videos of the borders of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, and then
Mhm.
plus all the other stuff where it just kind of like floats in. I was like, that looks awesome. I was like, you know, like how hard could it be or whatever. And he was showing his equipment that he had. So he had this a drone thing, and I Googled it. I was like, you know, I didn't know really, you know, how much it is or whatever. So I Googled
Mhm.
it, and I was like, okay, well that's kind of pricey. But when I saw that video of him doing that, and then it's just leaving up like just him in the focus and then just leaving and then just being out in the sky like so high and is just I was like, wow,
Mhm.
that's pretty amazing. So when it got me a drone really quick, and
Yeah.
I mean they're expensive, and I get nervous every time that I actually like use it.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of how crazy it is that you know we could get to have some type of either photo or video of something like that to me. So it's like every time it's like I feel like I mean I take it very serious when I'm out there because you have to, but it's just it's kind of fun for me to just do those. And there's I mean there's people that could do you know videography of that much better, and it all comes down to the editing of the videos. So I always do the drone stuff just because I mean I don't have that many properties to work on for listings anyway, so it depends. But it's just fun for me. So usually I'll take you know some portion of the day, and you can't be out there flying for that long anyways. The battery only lasts a certain amount of time, but it's all
Mhm.
practice. And but that's how I got the idea. I was like, if I could just do the if I do the tour and then I also do the drone thing, and then you know have it you know focus on the property and it just looks pretty awesome, and then it catches you know your attention, and then fast forward like now everybody has one that they're doing. And so usually what you do is you want to you pay for it so it gets done for the property just because of the
Mhm.
quality. And realistically like I don't have that much time to edit videos, so it's not
Yeah.
something that I you know you really should be spending time on. But I love that aspect of it because I mean I get to have that in my hands, and then I get to keep that. Nobody you know could do anything with it except for me. And so I was so in love with that thing like the first year.
Oh,
I was
nice.
asking everybody. I was like, hey, would you do this drone thing? And a lot of people were kind of like, oh, okay, because usually I mean everybody's weird about being on video, and I understood it. But I was like, you don't have
Yeah.
to do much. All you have to do is just wave by at it, and then you'll get to see it. And so then
Yeah.
that's how that happened. But no, I still manage the drone myself, and I still take those shots, and I'll probably continue to do it. As far as getting the listings or the videos for the listings, you know, timing wise, whatever you have to pay for it, it could be worth it for me to pay somebody to go in and take care of it, just
Mhm.
because of the time factor of me having to, you know, get together. But when I first started, I would also go and take the photos because, you know, we have a little bit of experience taking photos. So
Mhm.
I like to take pride that I do a pretty good job with my photos on most of my properties, even
Yeah, they
though,
look
you know,
great.
technically I don't really, yeah, so I don't edit them that much. And yeah, so most of the videos I do it myself, and most of the pictures myself. Sometimes I'll defer it, but otherwise I take care of that stuff myself just because it's fun.
Well, I think that's a great job in executing it, but they end up looking really good.
Mhm.
I mean, I for anyone watching, I have linked his Instagram and his website below. The videos are cool. And I like watching the ones with the properties on the outskirts of town. So for those of you who don't know about Las
Mhm.
Vegas, it's Las Vegas in a valley. And we have no other real cities around us, and it's like mountains and desert. So if you live on the edge of town, you might be the 10th house away from like a mountain range or like desert. And I love seeing it because I understand where I'm at in that part of town, how many neighbors I have, and exactly how much rocks and dust are around me. Or there's those neighborhoods where you can have horses and there might be a park and some greenery nearby, and you're like, that's the one. That's the one. I think it's a great way to give people more information about it without me having to read, because I'm getting tired of reading, right? I want to be visually stimulated. And I think you've done a really great job with the drones videos. So cool. I just watch now because I'm just interested in what's going on, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah. So you do most of the photo stuff on your own. So you have your camera, you have your drone. Do you do anything different to work with lighting, or you're just like, oh, I hope it's a sunny day outside and I open all the windows for the property?
So I figured out to time those. So as I'm there'll be some days where I just get really lucky. But I figured for a lot of those, I have to time them, and I learned to time it, especially with the drone, because if you fly at a certain day and the sun's hitting the opposite side of whatever the house is facing, then you have a house with a shadow, and it just doesn't look that great. So usually you have to time the day pretty well, depending which way it's looking. So, and the lighting inside of the home, it's kind of weird. It depends. So again, I couldn't really call myself a professional at all when it comes to the actual lighting inside, and there's some people that do a really great job. But you try to do the best. So some of the videos I took them with the drone camera. So that same camera, I just carry the drone, and it takes some pretty cool wide shots. Now with the iPhone camera on the 11, it's pretty amazing because then it has a wide angle. And so I've been experimenting with some of those, and it's pretty awesome because now you get to see, like you said, some of the ceilings, the chandeliers. You get to see the sides, and it's been pretty awesome to just use that. We used to have a gimbal that we used to put the cell phone. I think when he was helping me with the videos, it was the 10, and so now I just got this one not too long ago, so I'm trying that out. But I still got a lot of more work to do with that stuff. But lighting does make a huge difference.
Definitely, and we know from our photo days, if the lighting ain't working well, it's going to take so much post-processing to get it looking nice. Not even great, just nice, So being
there's been times where I had to go back and take photos.
Oh, okay, yeah. Same here. Don't tell my old boss. Wink. So being a real estate broker or agent in 2020, you have to kind of adapt and move with technology and culture and kind of all the tools that are out there to help you. So are there any other tools that kind of help enable your job? So I'm thinking towards, like, if I wanted to get started on the same career path as you, what kind of advice would you give to me to do that? And what other things should I be looking at? Like, maybe I won't start with drones because I'm not really good at flying things. I'm going to crash it. So, I mean, what should I look at for like licensing or tools that can help me out? Or do I need a mentor? So if I'm first starting, what would you tell me on how to get topping on it?
So the first thing that you want to get out of the way is the schooling part. So at least here in Nevada, you still need 90 hours of education, which technically isn't a lot, but it's just really meant to teach you the laws, regulations, and fundamentals of how selling property and land works, and all the other fancy stuff on it. So, I mean, here in town, we have this company called the Key Realty School, and they've been here forever. And they usually provide the easiest tools to, or website, or actually schooling to get that done. I would recommend doing it in person because you just get to soak in a lot of the stuff a lot more, I think, at least for myself.
Same.
I'm sure there's some people that could do great online. But if you get to do that, then to me, that's a great start. Not only that, but then you get to see people in there. And a lot of those classes are considered continuing education. So a lot of times you'll be going into these classes with people that are already agents, So they get to give you a little feedback, and then you'll have brokerages that go in there and kind of pitch a little bit of what they do and sponsor certain things. So it just it helps you kind of see what what everybody's about when you go in there. There's different schools that you could go to, and a lot of them are sponsored by actual big brokerages and companies. So, for example, me, say I got a pretty big company, and I wanted to start a school within my as long as I get accredited and to teach this stuff, then I could have people that potentially want to be agents come in and do their 90 hours, and then that's a good way for me to tell them, hey, how about you come here? Because what happens with
you're Gary Veeing on that.
Yes,
diversifying.
the thing is, like with real estate or the brokerages, but you always want to be recruiting. So as a brokerage, without agents, you're not really making any money as a brokerage, right?
Okay.
So me, I'm a broker and an operator and an agent. So I'm all in one, right? But the big companies that have been around since who knows when, I mean, they basically they set up the house, and then people come in, and then they do out the sales, and of course you do have to always have a mentor. So when you do the schooling, from there you get to decide which company you want to start with. You want to start with a small company, you want to go to a gigantic company and be part of their training that they do, because for the most part it's great training that they do. And basically you go to their meetings every day, and then they teach you how to cold call, they teach you how to pull certain lists, and basically that's kind of what they do. And then from there on, you build your business kind of like a high did, but you get to pull from a few different parts. Then really what comes down to what gets people to decide where to go is we have commission splits. So we get our commission when we do our sale, but then the broker gets to keep a certain amount depending what kind of agreement you have with that brokerage. So when you're starting, some of the brokerages have you at a 50-50 scale. Yeah. So
Wow.
So that's half of your whatever you do. So for example, I tried going back to one of those small brokerages in 2009. And again, back to those like a base home was 70,000. And and then you have a mentor. So the mentor takes the other 50. And then if they give you a lead coming into the office, like somebody calls the office and asks about a property, then that's another 25%. So I was like, oh, so I'm basically not going to make anything off of, me going and showing, 20 houses in one day and then coming back and then still try to make the transaction happen, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to my small brokerage with my small office that I had my license with, and I'll just, stick around the office as much as possible and then just build off of my own. So that was the path that I took. But you could go into the giant companies and then have the splits, and they're all a little bit different. But ultimately, somebody's got to pay the big office bill, right? So that's kind of what they do. So I would say decide which path you want to take, and if you want to go with a big brokerage or a small brokerage, and of course the smaller brokerage is gonna take less of a split with you. But there's always something that you have to pay because somebody's got to pay the bills as well too. So then once you decide where you want to go, then from there on is just all very much work and marketing and being able to tell everybody and their mom that you're a real estate agent and now you're selling property, and then never stop doing that.
Hey, remember me? I'm on Instagram. I'm still selling houses. Yeah.
There you go.
So is the path any different for if you are selling homes versus commercial real estate? I mean, are there other types of real estate I could work in potentially?
There's two different worlds. Oh yeah, there's so I mean, people call them specialties, but realistically, for example, so residential, which is just homes, condominiums, townhomes, those are its own world within itself. Commercial property, like say like a place where a Walmart's at or something like that, or something simple as where a nail salon is at. Those places, it's a whole different world for those to be sold. and those people kind of have their own way of doing things, which is completely different. They have to do, it's a lot more, definitely a lot more complicated. Like I wanted to get into it because it looks very appealing, but it's like learning a whole new trade kind of. So you'll go into it and then you have to kind of stick around somebody to get the hang of how things are done, because the paperwork's different, the inspections are different, all that's different. And then you also have people that just strictly do mobile home sales. As kind of bizarre as that sounds, there's a market for that.
Mobile home sales. Am I hearing that right? Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, or we call it modular, or manufactured homes.
Oh, that's the word I'm familiar with. Okay, yeah. They make it sound extravagant.
Yeah.
They put a little panache on it.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? Like sometimes it's a pretty good deal. I mean, like in California, if you could get one of those, depending where you're at, it's not a bad deal. The thing with those, I mean, obviously they're built different. So,
yeah.
But for the most part, when you buy one of those, either you own the actual modular home by itself, and then you rent out the spot where you're at, which kind of sucks because then they could potentially raise the rent on it at any given time, I suppose. Or there are some where you own the piece of land and you also own the modular home. But for the most part, I mean, people stay there for a very long time, and that's same thing. It's a whole nother world.
Okay, so side note, this just crossed my mind. I've been having a ongoing discussion with a friend of mine. What's the difference between a tiny home and a mobile home / modular home? So we've been trying to put like some bullet points down, like definitively, because I'm looking into buying a tiny home because I don't like cleaning. I want to be able to travel and I don't want to have to worry about everything breaking. And if anything goes wrong, and maybe I can rent it out on Airbnb in the future, who knows? So from your perspective, what's the difference between a tiny home and the others? I guess we'll just call it the others. Because they're both kind of small. They're not like 2-story dwellings per se.
Yeah, I think so. As far as the actual construction, or realistically who would like get permits for it or who would permit it. So, any actual structure has to be approved by either the county or, depending where you're at, the state, the city. And so my perception, I really haven't dealt much with, I've never actually dealt with a tiny home, right? But I know on the modular homes, when you deal with those, it has a VIN number, just like a car. And so here in Vegas, the real estate division, they have a special branch just for the modular homes, manufactured homes. And so the way that they, conduct sales of those or inspections of how they're supposed to be built, or say somebody builds a brand new one, they have to go through them and pass all the county regulations that they have to have to how those are built, right? Because it can't just be like this thing put together. Like it actually has certain criteria. So I can only imagine that a tiny home is probably very similar to it, because it's still a structure that is housing somebody. So then I'm sure there's things that they have to follow for it. Now, as far as, you taking it from one place to another, a tiny home just seems like a lot easier to be able to carry that home somewhere else, or a place wherever you're going to take it, because most modular homes aren't that small. And like a modular home wouldn't be like a trailer that you see, like it looks like a kind of camper thing. That really wouldn't be it. Like it would actually have to be an actual full structure with, like its own living room and bedroom or whatever it is. So it wouldn't be like this thing that you see somebody hang out, like that you could attach to a car type of thing. But a tiny home is an actual structure that I'm pretty sure that has regulations as far as, how it's built. And I'm sure the county has what to say in how the structure is actually finalized. So
that's a nice way to think about it. Our criterias came up different a little bit. Like we thought it's the type of living like feel you're looking for. Like when I think tiny home, I think people who want to like be as efficient with their space as possible. But if you look at both the groups, maybe they both have similar budgets. And maybe one wants to be like actually mobile, like, oh, I'm hooking this up to the back of my truck and taking it around.
Oh yeah, I mean, without a doubt, something that I guess I imagine, or most of us see like at a trailer park home that they call them, would be something that you definitely can't just like pick it up and then just take it wherever you're gonna go. As opposed to a tiny home, you could definitely always move it much easier, even if it's I mean, if they're pretty large structures, they're not that tiny per se, right? So there is some specialty to it, but you could actually move them quite a lot easier than something that's a modular home and it's drilled down to the floor.
Okay. So I'm gonna take that back into the ongoing discussion in the group chat and see what we have to say about it. So thank you for the info.
I'll get you some more info later on it.
I would if we could talk about tiny homes one day, that would be so cool because I'm so interested in them. And so that's like my latest interest. Like I've lived in big places, I've lived in small places, but I just kind of wanted to find what a nice, comfy dwelling looks like for me. So I'm back in the process of thinking about home ownership again. And I was going through your Instagram and saw that you had this like super brilliant, like 16 steps of like what actually happens during the home buying process. And it really helped me think like, oh God, there was a lot more to think about than I thought. Maybe I'm not ready, Okay, but could you like tell me a little bit about why you made that and what those steps are? So maybe some things people don't realize when it comes to buying or selling homes.
Yeah. So, I mean, a little bit of a kind of, well, not really secret, but the reason that came up was, or that I wanted to put it on there was because my client that I'm listing that home for, so he's a seller, but he was the buyer not too long ago. And so, I mean, he already went through that process as the buyer. But what happens is most times, I think everybody just kind of, you went through the experience and you're just like, all right, I'm out, right? So you don't really, but that's our job to really, take you through the process, like no matter what. And so, in his case, he already knew, but we had a little bit of trouble with some of the buyers that first came through. So we had to go through 2 different escrows that got canceled before that because of the buyer's financing. So the reason I did that was because I kind of wanted to give him a little glimpse as far as the notes go, because I had already talked to him about it a few times and like, this is what happens, this is what comes next. But I know he looks at it as well too, like everybody else. I was like, oh, it'd be a good way to kind of show everybody kind of the different steps that happen, through the transaction. Because even though that list does look kind of long, because I didn't realize it was 16 of them. Because to me, it's like I'm so used to just going through it and then it just flows out, right? But for people, then you don't really get to kind of see everything else that happens, because some of those happen really quick, and then all of a sudden the other ones take a long time. So there's different time frames for all of those. But I wanted to show him kind of where we were at once we were past the appraisal part, because the other transactions didn't even get there. So I wanted to give him a little bit of a breather as far as, like we've already been through that. Like the next steps are just, it's downhill. So that was the reason that happened. But that's what we're here for. I mean, those parts of the transaction pretty much, when we are helping a client either sell or buy, you want to just take on the steps, and then we're taking on, what comes next kind of, and then either preparing you for the possibilities, but taking you little step by step. Because if I give you that list, then you're going to feel exactly how you feel right now about that list, right? But if I tell you, okay, well, this is what happens tomorrow, then this is what happens the next day, then you're like, oh, okay. And then, once that part's out, I was like, okay, so this is what happens now, and then I take you through that. But I kind of wanted to show the complexity, and then also that, for him to know that we're already halfway, and then the rest will be good.
I think it's a good like outline too for if someone's like, I'm gonna do this myself. No agents, I'm not even gonna mess with it. But it doesn't look like something I would be able to easily teach myself and exit. You're dealing with large sums of money. I wouldn't trust myself to be able to pull that off, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I learned this kind of the hard way, and a lot of different things. Like I tried doing some landscape myself at home, and you know, I could do, I think I could do pretty much anything. I'm changing, you know, brakes, changing your own oil, any of those things, right? But ultimately, what happens is that it comes down to the time. And the reason that when somebody, you know, you take whatever you're gonna do somewhere, is because they're gonna take care of it a lot quicker. And what happens is that all those years of them investing that time and doing it over and over and over and over again is what allows you to, you know, take your car and then, you know, go back and pick it up in an hour or two from whatever it is that you did to it.
Yeah.
That if I try to do it at home, it's taking me a whole freaking day just doing it because, you know, I don't do that every day. I could do it, but it's gonna take me a longer time, and I'm gonna have to scratch my head all day to figure it out. And that's realistically why we exist, is to try to make that process a lot easier for anybody that's going through it. Because most times it's not going to be easy, but like again, it always helps to have somebody by your side, kind of get you through it. And that's really what we're there for.
And so for those of you watching, I did provide a description in the box down below and have linked your Instagram. So if people have some questions or would like to know more about it, maybe they can reach out or keep it themselves and see what they have to say. And, you know, it seemed pretty comprehensive from my perspective, but what would be like a really solid big piece of advice to someone who wants to start looking at buying their own first home? Like, what is the part that's going to make me just feel like, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. I can't do this. And how do I fix that?
So the hardest part, yeah. Well, I mean, I always tell everybody, look, it's a lot easier than what you imagine, but you just have to actually go ahead and start. Because if you don't start, you'll always imagine it as this big hill that, you know, you never got past, and all you got to do is start. But the first thing that you really want to do, like anytime that I'm going to look at buying a property, you want to get pre-qualified for a mortgage unless you're coming in all cash. But if you have a mortgage like most of us, and you're going to be coming in with, you know, minimum down payment, you want to get pre-qualified because it gives you a full picture of your financial situation and your credit and all that, and what the bank is expecting from.
Oh, hey, we're back again. All right.
Sorry,
No, it's okay.
I got a call. I apologize.
That's all right.
So the first.
Oh no, we lost him again. We'll have to finish up round 2. All right. Well, it looks like we are having a bit of technical difficulty. So I am going to contact Adrian and see what we have going on here.
I'm sorry.
Adrian. All right. There we go.
I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. It's life, guys. It's coronavirus. We deal with what happens. Okay.
So just the pre-qualification part, just actually either you meet with a loan officer or you apply for a mortgage. I like to be a little, I wouldn't say biased, because I mean, as agents, we could recommend people, right? But with experience, the one thing that I learned early on is that you have to make sure that you're working with a good loan officer, because that will really make your experience much better. If you work with a loan officer that's not amazing, it'll be a crazy transaction. And so that's the beginning part, because I tell people, without a loan, there's no home. So that's the first part you want to do. And that doesn't always, because a lot of times when we first pre-qualify, we're going to get a rejection of something, or there's going to be something that we have to work on. So whatever happens, just apply for the mortgage, and then make sure that whatever they ask you for, if it's not already set to be done, or you're ready to just, you know, they tell you like you're pre-qualified for this, you always want to make sure that you have all the things in place that honestly, for me, my clients, even though they get a pre-qualification, I usually kind of guide them on certain things because, again, experience is that I kind of foresee certain things that, maybe a lender might overlook, and then I have to remind them so that everybody knows of what has to be taken care of before we even, because the worst thing that happens is when you go into a transaction and then you can't purchase the home after you already, went in and looked at it, you fell in love with the home, you got the offer accepted and everything's awesome, and then the lender tells you you can't qualify. It is the worst. Because everybody comes out unhappy out of that. So you always want to have your pre-qualification prior to that. And then if you don't qualify, just prepare for it. I mean, there's been quite a few times that I have been qualified for a home, and I just get ready. I do everything I have to do, and then I prepare. And sometimes it could take me 2 or 3 months, and sometimes it could take me a full year or more to get ready to do whatever I have to do. But, it's just being prepared.
So from what I know, you need to have your down payment money. You need to have some good credit, or, credit would be, yeah. And then you want your debt to income ratio to be low. You want to have a lot more income than debt. And so can you talk about what those things are that we should foresee?
So, I would say first is that if those things are very, very important, right? Because you'll be essentially preparing yourself to go into it before. But if you don't go and pre-qualify, you might be getting over prepared for those things. So if you do the pre-qualification first, because there's no obligation to do anything when you get pre-qualified. It just, you get a full picture of what it is. But essentially what it comes down to is the down payment money. It is very important to have it, because what a mortgage bank or a bank is looking for is for it to be consistency with your income and consistency with your spending. So if every month you're spending all of your money coming in, then it doesn't look very good. So at some point there has to be some type of savings of a certain percentage of your income, because they do look at that. And then after that, the down payment money, if you prepared yourself, then yes, you want to have either 3.5% or 5% as a down payment of whatever the purchase price is. You could have more, but those are the minimums usually. Most states have down payment assistance programs that it's awesome if you get the money, but they do come with either higher interest rates or certain locks on whatever it is that you're getting. So it could be worth it. It just depending on everybody's situation. But so down payment money, and then the debt to income ratio. Here's a part of that. A lot of times there's people that have really awesome income, and they can't qualify because they have their car, and sometimes that could be as high as $600-700. So that takes a lot of your income off of there. So that means your debt is high. And then after that, they might co-sign for a cousin or a friend or somebody. That's another debt that they have on there. And then you have credit cards and all that stuff. So when all those things stack up, it makes it kind of difficult depending on how much of income you have. Because even if you're not making those payments, somebody else is, it's still on your credit. So that still affects what you do. So, and then after that, that's really the kind of the basics of what you want to kind of have in place before you head into the actual transaction. But I would still recommend just getting pre-qualified and seeing where you're at, because maybe your credit is at a 650, right? And you have on there a collection from the library that you had no idea about, and all you have to do is pay that and have them delete it, and your credit will shoot back up to 700, and then you're in a whole different world. So that's why you always want to get pre-qualified even before you do any of the other stuff, because you want to get yourself ready for whatever it is that you need to do.
Yeah. So I wonder if homeowners right now, especially young people who are like coming into the economy, just graduating college or going to be a professional, and now they have massive student debt. Like, I don't know if you taught college and now you have like money for your master's due. To what extent are student loans paying? To what extent do they figure into how creditworthiness with home buying? Like, how are my student loans and my possibility of getting home related, and should I worry or should I really worry?
So it does affect it because it does go on your credit or on your file as debt, right? And so what they consider is every
Dang.
month, depending what you have, but also every mortgage company treats it a little bit different. So some of them will take a certain percentage of that. So say, for example, your student loan, you have to pay a minimum of say 300. Some of the mortgage companies might consider only counting half of that towards your debt, and so that gives you 150 bucks to be able to have a little bit of room. But it
Okay.
depends on the lender, and then on how good the rest of your file is.
Okay.
Also, sometimes they're able to defer them. In certain situations, depending on what it is, the field that they're in, or things like that. So there's options. You just have to. It's very particular to every single situation and every type of field that people are in. But they do count against you for the minimum of whatever is due that month. Yeah.
So
No,
I have student loans, or I could have a mortgage right now. They're both the same amount for me, and I'm just like, I'm never getting out of this hole. Oh my goodness. Oh.
It is, yeah, no, I mean, for the majority, at least the last, which is kind of incredible because now this year, the last statistic I read, about 26% of the people who were coming in were first-time buyers. But for the last 3 years or 4 years, what has made it difficult for younger people to qualify is the debt-to-income ratio because of the student loans that they have, because they're so high that it was very difficult to get them to do anything on it. But depending again on the mortgage or on the loan officer, you could see what are the possibilities for that situation. So you can see if you could potentially still put them through without making them more difficult. A lot of times the co-signer or the co-borrower that's going to be on the loan with them, they usually might not have that loan on it, so that usually makes up for whatever they're deficient on, and then it just kind of pushes it up to whatever they need to be at.
So are you
But
telling me, Adrian, I should start dating rich people or continue to date rich people? Is that going to
yes,
help me when it comes time to purchase a house?
yes, that helps all of us.
Yeah, it helps you, helps me, helps the channel, right? Oh,
The
yeah.
whole economy.
Yeah, goodness, yeah. I've wondered sometimes if there's going to be a push economically or systemically for them to think about how they give out loans, because there's so many of us just zonked with student debt, and it looks like prices are still increasing even though the quality of like college education is going down. So I if there's any like articles coming out about that, I would love to read about those. That would be so cool.
Yeah, that's the kind of like the between a rock and a hard place, because I mean the amount of money that the banks or whoever's doing those, it's a good amount. I mean, so far, I mean, there's people, well, from what I understand, right? Like if you're in a certain field, a lot of times the employer will end up paying for it, or they could be forgiven at some point. And then there's private lenders. What I tell people is like, if you're not really doing, and depending on how your credit is, there's 0% interest credit cards, where, they'll give you a thing for 12 months or 18 months. What I would do if I had student loans, I would transfer as much as possible onto one of those, and then keep paying my regular payment on that, but transfer a little bit of the student loan part there, and each year chunk it off, because now you're paying zero interest on say you're only doing 5,000 each year. It's a lot quicker than whatever you would do longer than that, depending how much you have.
I've never thought about that. That's a cool suggestion. Nice.
Yeah, because I mean, at least you're paying interest. So the whole idea with so part of us doing this, and this is just my thing, right? Because I had to be creative whenever times weren't that great, as far as how to carry debt, and then how to be able to take care of things, so that it doesn't end up shooting me in the foot as I'm trying to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
So they have those options. That's why it's always good to have good credit, because then you have more options for the banks or companies to lend you money, and then you have to, use them for whatever they're allowing without you having to pay, more interest. So to me, it's just like you do that, you pay zero interest on, say $10,000 one year, and but you have to really stick with it to try to, get rid of it a lot quicker. But, I can only imagine it's one of those things that just haunts people for a very long time.
Yeah, like 30 years or maybe even till I die. Who knows? We'll see which one happens first, but I hope I get the student debt paid off before I die and get a house. So we'll see.
I'm sure you can do both.
Yeah, we're working on it. And what a great time to start in 2020.
Yeah.
Gosh, the biggest joke of the century. My goodness. Well, Adrian, I have had such a lovely evening chatting with you, and thank you for sharing with us about your journey to become a real estate broker and what things we can think about when we are looking to buy our first homes. Do you have any kind of words of encouragement or last bits of knowledge for people watching, or if we have any kiddos watching who are thinking about becoming real estate agents?
Yeah. I think there's too much I can probably say, but honestly, it's just, with anything, like I've been going at this for such a long time. So again, say since 2009, right? I'm past the 10-year mark, and for somebody like myself, right, that's not very, trying to find the social, or that I definitely don't consider myself a salesperson, because I kind of hate that. That even if you are a little conservative with personality or whatever it is that you're trying to do, it's going to take a lot longer than whatever you imagine. But if you just keep working at it and you're good to people, it always comes back around. I mean, I've done so many things for clients, and it comes back full circle and even better. So if you're trying to do whatever it is that you're trying to do, just stay with it, keep trying, get good at it, and then do a good job for people, and it'll pay back a lot more.
That sounds very Gary Vee, right? Give back to others, and it'll come back for you around tenfold. But
it does.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been actually, I don't listen to him that much anymore, but I mean, it's just true. It's weird.
Yeah. He was actually the inspiration for me, kind of thinking about, what else can I do to apply my knowledge? Or, I know, especially where we work, you get to know so many people who end up going on to do so many different things or from different backgrounds. I'm like, this is just such the perfect opportunity to talk to people who I know who have massive knowledge in their areas and break it down into little bits before I spend the year trying to get my licenses and stuff and seeing if it's for me. So
yeah.
I really appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Adrian, thank you for a lovely evening tonight. And I have posted Adrian's medias below, so you can catch you on Instagram, YouTube. You've got your own website. Anything else to let people know if they want to get in touch with you or follow you?
No, I mean, Instagram is really the best place. Kind of shamefully, I'm a little bit too much on there sometimes. But if you need to get a hold of me, pretty much any of those channels would work. I'm working on the YouTube to kind of improve it. I never really put anything on there, but I have some stuff coming on there that I'm working on that'll be a lot lengthier. And the website also work in progress. It's okay. So just if you actually have any questions, I'm always on Instagram, and I always answer really, really fast any real estate questions you may have.
Yes, he does. I know this for a fact because that's how I bothered you at like probably midnight. Who knows? Oh, well, awesome. Adrian, thank you so much. And for everyone at home, thank you for tuning in tonight. Follow Adrian at his medias posted below. Look at the 16 steps and look at the helpful links we provided for people thinking about wanting to buy a home. All right. Well, Adrian, thank you. Have a good night. Everybody at home, take care and be